So before we look at the tank designer, I just want to talk about the research that's required to get what you need to do. So funnily enough, the research for the tank design doesn't start here. It's not here. The beginning of the tank designer starts here. You're probably thinking, what part of a tank will this go into? Can anyone guess? Can anyone take a guess? What part of the tank do you think, by researching one of these, go into a tank? Anyone want to take a guess? Radio, 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 nuclear tank, nuclear tank, nuclear tank. I'm gonna let you guys all know, you are all completely wrong. It is the gas turbine engine. I'm just joking, you're right, it was radio, but there's gas turbine as well. So there's quite a few little bits of research in here. So the first one is that under the jet engines, you can get a gas turbine engine. Gas turbine engines are unbelievably fast, not very reliable. So it's like your jet engine. You basically put a jet engine in a tank. And then the other research are radios. Look at the bonuses you get. Advanced radio, 3 production costs, 65% extra defense, 65% extra breakthrough. This is the meta. Everyone's going to do this. The bonus is just too good. Now, what part of the tank do you think will be in this section, gentlemen? Machine gun, the car, the soft attack, the paratanks. A paratank, I like that actually. Armored car, amphibious, MG or tracks. It's the suspension. So if you go for motorized, you get the first level of suspension. This suspension is not made for tanks, really. It is basically a truck suspension. Which has reduction of hardness, reduction of reliability. It is an awful suspension that is very, very cheap. And we also have the half-track suspension, which is more reliable. To be honest with you, the only time you will use these suspensions is if you're making a tank on a budget. But my goodness, suspensions are awful. Really, really, really awful. You never want to be putting a motorized or mechanized suspension inside of a tank, but the option is there. We're here now, boys. What part of a tank do you think will be in this section of the research tree? Tell me. Yeah, it's the guns. It's the guns. So you have a medium tank here, and you can see we've got a small cannon, and we have an automatic cannon. We have a basic anti-air gun and a basic heavy cannon. What you generally find is no matter what path you go down, apart from rockets, is you always end up with the medium cannon. So you'll have a cannon with a solid shot, which is your classic tank cannon. Then you have a tank with a howitzer, which is with an explosive shot, like that one, howitzer. So lots of soft attack, but very little hard attack. Really good for breaking entrenched positions, hitting soft targets, but not so good against dug-in targets, such as concrete bunkers or other tanks. And then you have, like, for instance, anti-tank guns, high-velocity tank cannons, which aren't very good at softer targets, but are very good at hard targets. So this is your general cannon, your standard cannon. And this is one that's obviously based upon anti-tank cannon. So no matter what path you go down, 1, 2, or 3, you will get the standard cannon. But if you go down to the specific path, you'll get a gun that's tailored to anti-air or high-velocity anti-tank or whatever, or howitzer. And also you've got rockets as well. All right, boys, there's a few other little Easter eggs and little hidden stuff. Inside of support companies, under maintenance too, you have easy maintenance. Oh, look, it's got screwdrivers and stuff. Extra 10% reliability. Wow. And also under Engineer 2, we have the Dozer Blade. Gives extra entrenchment for tanks and flamethrowers for tanks. It's interesting this because look at the attack bonus you're getting certain terrain types. So all the terrain types that tanks usually aren't very good at attacking, this will give you an attack bonus in those circumstances. How awesome is that? So are you ready for medium tanks in 1936? Are you ready for heavy tanks in 1936? We'll get this at the very start of the game. You can research them. So let's look at the armor, for instance. So first, armor. When you go into the tank designer, you have like a number in the bottom right. See this number here, engine and armor? And when you get more upgrades for armor and engine, you can put more points into them. The way it works is the more power you put in the engine, or the heavier your tank gets with more armor, you have a drop in reliability. So as you can see, the maximum is 5, 10, 15, 18. So basically, going for these research allows you to put that number even higher. So you would have to go for this research, complete it, add on the extra modification, pay the XP cost to update the variant, and then start producing that new tank. So there's quite a few steps to actually improve your tank after you get the research. And then on the right side, you've got armor. So the first one gets you welded armor. There's 2 kinds of armor. There's cast armor, which is like a whole solid frame. And then there's riveted armor, which is like, it's got lots of weak spots in it because obviously riveted, so there's lots of gaps. But then welded is like the best of both. Cast is really expensive, but probably the meta will be cast armor. Anyway, so if you go for higher levels, you get up to level 18 armor. Let's just go with a hypothetical. Let's actually make a tank. It's going to be a heavy interwar tank with cast armor. So as you can see, cast armor is very expensive, but it's a very, very strong armor. So imagine it in your head. Cast armor is where they put together a mold for an entire tank that's made of steel. So there's no weak spots in it because it's an entire solid frame. But can you think of the manufacturing nightmare it is to produce one of those tanks with one whole solid frame? Where you go for riveted armor, which they make each individual piece of the tank, assemble it, put it together, and nail it together. Rivets are basically nails. But the problem with rivets is that when they're under pressure, the rivets shoot out and there's lots of gaps. Now, welded armor is the best of both. It is very, very well armored, but it doesn't have the insane production cost. So let's go for cast armor. Go for diesel engine because it's reliable. We'll go for the boogie suspension. Basic heavy cannon. So if I want to whack on as much armor as possible for this tank, it would have 90 armor. Armor of 90, speed of 4.1, reliability of 39. This is a horrific tank. This tank basically will break down at every possible opportunity. This is not going to be a very reliable tank in any way, shape, and form. But remember, guys, this is a chassis of an interwar tank. This tank predates World War II. Here it is, boys. 40 interwar heavy chassis tanks. Do you know what's really surprising? How you're not going to need some of the like higher chassis of the tanks. So let's just compare the two. So let's go for the crappy medium and the more advanced medium. Just look at the stats. The defense is the same. The service manpower is the same. The breakthrough is the same. The hardness is the same. The speed is the same. The armor is massively different. So the big difference is the armor. Reliability is the same. Fuel cost is the same. The production cost is different. So the only thing we're gaining from a better chassis is armor. It makes me think the armor game's changed now. I think the meta is going to be enough armor on the tank to get the bonus, and then enough soft attack to just completely shred through infantry. I don't think making a tank that can fight other tanks is going to be the meta, because that's not what the meta is at the moment. Look at this, guys. I asked for this ages ago. The light tank now, the light tank 3, goes into the medium 3. How awesome is that? So I think at the moment, speed is not a big deal anymore, because I think when you move outside of your supply lines, you get so many speed reductions due to being out of supply. This is just a prediction, by the way. I'm probably going to be completely wrong, so you'll laugh at this video and be like, ha ha ha, feedback knows nothing. I think a torsion bar will be the suspension, so it gives reliability. They'll go for cast armor because cost is like no object. Diesel engine because it's reliable, and then they're going to go for some kind of heavy gun like a howitzer. You'll go for a 3-man turret because it gives breakthrough. I mean, the autoload is pretty good. Obviously advanced radio because the stats are amazing. Sloped armor is kind of a good one. 20% extra armor. Maybe armor skirts, maybe autoloader, maybe stabilizer. Just because it gives all the best stats. And right now the stats are through the freaking roof. Yeah, I personally think this is probably going to be the tank that people are going to use. It feels to me like more time has progressed with Hearts of Iron 4. Less and less people care about speed on tanks. It's just something I've noticed more and more and more. Multiplayer games seem to be more focused on attack and more focused on just how much firepower you can squeeze into a tank. So the dealio with this tank is it's got insane breakthrough, insane soft attack. So its ability to break front lines is amazing. It's interesting to see like how players will try and squeeze as much armor out of a tank as possible, but then they're going to damage the reliability. It's interesting how that combination of the two.